right over here, we have the world GDP over the last 2 millennia. And as you can see, holy shit. Let's get to some meme destroying. So, on this week's segment of the meme to destroy, we have a tweet from friend of the show, frequent guest, Taylor Lorenz.
Big fan, big fan.
For those of you who don't recall who Taylor Lorenz is and when she was on the show, bad for you for not knowing about the show, because you should have listened to every single episode up to 136 by now.
Shame.
But good for you for not knowing who the hell she is, because
it means you don't
your life is probably slightly better.
Right.
Anyway, Taylor Lorenz, in addition to being a blue check over on Twitter, is the journalist. I don't remember who she writes.
By the way, does that mean that you're a validated human?
Yeah.
Like you're an actual human? No, one of those little...
Especially since she got one before the, Elon, anybody can pay to get it thing. So she's like super a fish.
That's weird. Going on.
I forget who she writes for us. It was one of those Washington Times, Washington Post, Washington, whatever. Who cares? Doesn't matter.
Shit.
Don't read it unless you want to lose brain cells. Anyway, you can't just escape her by not reading her posts if you see her on Twitter, because sometimes she tweets shit like this. She said, quote, "People are like, why are kids so depressed? It must be their phones." But never mention the fact that we're living in a late-stage capitalist hellscape during an ongoing deadly pandemic with record wealth inequality, zero social safety net and job security, as climate change cooks the world. I don't know what version of reality Taylor Lorenz is living in, but that's not anyone that resembles the reality that the rest of us are living in. Well, I mean, there's plenty of Taylor Lorenz's out there, plenty of people that would agree with that tweet. I just don't know what fucking planet they're living on. David? Did she burn your last 2 brain cells and now you
I was still trying to
don't have to rub together to get a response out?
I feel like granted, I'm not size shaming her. I'm not shaming her in any other way, but I feel like Taylor Lorenz doesn't sweat most days.
Probably not.
I'm going to assume she's never missed a meal due to the fact that she couldn't afford it. And I'm going to assume that she doesn't have to mine cobalt day in, day out with her offspring strapped to her back, inhaling the same fucking radioactive chemical bullshit into her chest that's going to give her cancer, not tomorrow, not the next day, but the day after. I'm pretty sure she's never done that, although she's more than willing to use the device that those people did to create the chip to put into the phone, that she didn't take 2 fucking seconds to think her thought out before she just shit it out into the rest of the world with no concept, with no social deconstruction, with no way back from the hellscape that she's talking about.
I would say, that's a pretty safe bet.
Fair. Okay, let's go.
Let's break this tweet down, and we're gonna get through it a little bit quicker. I mean, we could do an entire episode on this, but we're just gonna go through this from pretty.
Where does she live in Washington?
I don't know if she lives there. I'm sure that's
an adjunct.
I think that's who she writes for. I don't know where she lives. So. But would I be at all surprised to find out that she lives in either like New York, LA, or Washington? No, not even close. Anyway, so as we talk here, there's going to be a couple data points that are going to roundly prove David and I correct on this. I mean, as if you needed, graphics to give you the visual confirmation of what we're saying is accurate, vis-a-vis Taylor Lorenz being a complete moron. But Nameless Faceless Video Guy is going to put them up right here so you, the viewer, can enjoy. And let's start first with this late-stage capitalism thing. Late-stage capitalism is kind of like the word neoliberal. It's when people say it, they intend to sound really informed and educated, and they really know what's going on because they've identified the problems with the world, and they're the real, intellectual movers and shakers towards figuring out, why this world sucks. But they are completely meaningless phrases, meaningless descriptors that don't describe anything and are just meant to be like catchy little buzzwords to signal to their in crowd that, hey, I'm a friendly face. Listen to what I have to say for the rest of the drivel that I have for the characters.
Well, you're missing a point here. There's a connotative value to it too. Because don't forget, right after she says it, she puts a bunch of bullshit behind it that she wants you to think is negative. Just really bad for everybody. So the next time that they get in a conversation, they don't have to call you always Trumper or a MAGA hat wearer or anything else. These guys are really good at names.
Yeah.
Really good at name calling.
They are.
Well, I mean, within their own tribe.
So late stage capitalism for the uninitiated. And again, if you have no idea what this is, good on you because you haven't been paying attention to people like Taylor Lorenz. Late stage capitalism is kind of like a piggybacking on Marxism, right? His theory that capitalism will eventually like die under its own weight. It'll get so big and lethargic and starve out so many people that the world will be terrible. And then the socialist revolution will happen. And then we'll all march into our communist utopia and everybody will be happy. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
And eat bug burgers.
Trademark. Anyway, it's complete and utter bullshit. And so that's why the phrase has no meaning at all. But the late stage capitalist hellscape during an ongoing deadly pandemic with record wealth inequality. First of all, about that late stage capitalist hellscape, let's just put a couple data points out there. As you can see beside me, we have a collection of charts put together by Our World Data that shows the trajectory of extreme poverty, basic education, literacy, democracy, vaccination rates, and child mortality over the last couple centuries, which is basically the rough time frame that coincides with the advent of capitalism, because the ideas of self-ownership, which extends to keeping the fruit of your labor, which includes investing in capital, which includes all of the freedom and voluntary exchange that makes up the capitalist system. That really is a relatively novel and new concept within the human experience, coming out of Enlightenment ideas at the end of the 1700s and to the early 1800s. So looking at the last 200 years roughly of the human experience is rather telling about what the world is like under capitalism. As you can see in the graphic here, we have extreme poverty absolutely fallen off of a fucking cliff. We have basic education skyrocketing. We have literacy skyrocketing. We have democracy and vaccination rates, which, have your own misgivings about those things. David and I have talked extensively about those, but those are through the roof. And we would imagine that someone like Taylor Lorenz, especially since she referenced the pandemic, she should be stoked that in the last 200 years, vaccination rates have exploded and democracy has exploded. And then the last one, child mortality, much like extreme poverty, is falling off a cliff. And so I just posit to you, dear listener or viewer, imagine a world completely flipped around. Imagine freedom and voluntary exchange, capitalism had existed for 2,000 years. And then all of a sudden, socialism radically came on the scene about 200 years ago, and these results occurred. Would we ever hear the end of it? Would Taylor Lorenz ever stop shouting from the rooftops about the wisdom of our wise socialist overlords? And don't you see, extreme poverty is falling through the floor, and basic education and literacy is skyrocketing. But the opposite's true. All of those great things in humanity and in the human experience have happened to coincide with the rise of capitalism. Now, maybe that's a coincidence, maybe not. But it certainly isn't a capitalist hellscape, a late-stage capitalist hellscape, as Taylor Lorenz suggests. So allow these 6 charts to just be the opening salvo for you, the listener and viewer, to understand that Taylor Lorenz and all the people that talk like this are completely full of shit.
Well, the thing is that usually when you have a really good idea, you don't have to convince people of it. You don't have to keep changing the narratives. Well, it's just because it hasn't been perfected yet. It's like, okay, how long has communism or socialism existed? For before our lifetimes. quite substantially before our lifetimes, so I could say that. And again, it's been implemented in a multitude of different countries. I don't have them all on a list and a topographical, geographical, graphic. But what I can tell you is that we have communistic countries today that all of these people that think that it's such a great thing can buy a plane ticket to those countries and see how great communism really is. And what a society and what a strong foundation for a country it builds. Right now. You don't have to go to a history book and take words and literature at its base value. No. Go experience it. Go over there and live there for 2 years. 2 years. Then when you do that and you come back and you're still espousing that communism is the best thing ever, then I'll take you up on it, Taylor. But until then, until you go and live in one of those societies, until you really reflect upon what the fuck you just vomit out of your mouth onto your thumbs and into the ether of Twitter, the Twitter sphere, take a second, make a difference, and really think. Number one, do people want to hear me talk? Probably not. Number two, really more importantly, is the thought that I'm putting out there worth people reading? And if it's anything like that, no. Because what do? You just present a problem. What was the solution? Was it communism? Was I supposed to infer that communism was the right thing to do there?
At least social, at least democratic.
At least democratic socialism.
Which again,
define that for me.
the data part says democracy's having a good time under capitalism. So, you got half of your democratic
It's fucking
socialism.
weird how that's working, huh? But because it's working so well, we got to change it.
Yeah.
We don't want to get caught behind the power curve. So next time, one of you blue hairs or one of you left leaners or one of you liberals or whatever the fuck you want to call yourselves have a fucking complaint, do something that's completely out of the ordinary for you and offer a solution for once. Don't just tell me that life sucks because everything sucks and why doesn't everything suck and all we have to do is vote D or blue or whatever, no matter who, and that'll solve all of our problems. No. Think deeper about it. And if you can't think deeper about it, shut the fuck up and I don't want to read your tweet.
That's what I'm here for, to make you read it and get brain cancer with me. One more data point.
Supposedly, she's a symptom of the disease, not...
Of course, but, if she was an individual cancer cell, she is a primary metastasizer. She is...
Well, she is the first one.
She
pulled a flag.
She is pushing it out to the rest of the body far more vigorously than most cancer cells.
Well, that's fair.
Just saying.
I can say that.
One more data point from Nameless Faceless Guy right over here. We have the world GDP over the last 2 millennia. And as you can see, holy shit. So this one dates all the way back to the year 1. And as you can see, humanity was relatively stagnant for about
You got an axe in your forehead, you shit in a hole.
95% of this. So let's just retread back to Taylor Lorenz's tweet.
Most of us would vomit at the sight of a nude woman.
Where she says, record wealth inequality and zero social safety net and job security. Well, let's just take a look at that world GDP over the last 2 millennia and say, Taylor, how well or how much do you think wealth inequality mattered in, say, let's just pick a random point here in this last 2,000 years, in the year 1500, when humanity had about as much GDP as it did 1,500 years before that?
Feudal.
You think there's a whole lot of difference? You think it matters a whole lot when the global GDP of humanity is stagnant and not going anywhere? Yeah, everybody's equally fucking poor. We're the richest kings of Europe, have to pay some servant to take their waste outside.
What's the life expectancy?
And dump it out the window. I don't know, but I want to keep it just to...
That's all I'm saying. Like, you live to the ripe old age of 30.
So this idea of losing your mind over wealth inequality, yeah, when the chart goes nuclear, yeah, some people are going to get at the top of that chart and a lot of us aren't. But I bet you, Taylor, would take your cushy life with your probably 80 to 100,000 a year salary and your nice phone filled with cobalt, as David said, over, even being a king of Europe in the 1500s. And this last one, zero social safety net and job security. Again, Taylor, look at the world GDP chart. How much safety net and job security do you think you had in the year 1000, the year 1500, when poverty was the norm, right? But your no social safety net, no job security is looking pretty damn nice these days.
Point though.
Looking pretty good, pretty nice these days. Why? Because of the explosiveness and wealth that happened shortly after the advent of capitalism. So rather than being a hellscape, Taylor, I suggest you take a look at the world around you, ask some more inquisitive questions than, oh, I don't know, I think Marx had it all right, and I'm just going to apply that to everything I see, despite the fact that my eyeballs disconfirm what I think every single day. And as David said, either shut the fuck up or educate yourself before you speak.
You know what? And it's just so telling because everything that you just said, if you lost everything today and could not find a job at a cushy office space or an insurance firm or whatever, you know what you could always do, Dane? You can always get hired on at a farm to pick strawberries or blueberries, much like the illegal immigrants do today that have no job security, that have no education,
Don't speak the language,
can't even speak the language,
have no connections.
but don't mind working from dusk until dawn, or vice versa, dawn till dusk, doing the most arbitrary thing, but doing it as fast as they possibly can all day long. Doing that. But no. Taylor's so white privileged or whatever privileged, let's just call it millennial privileged at this point, that she's never even known manual labor, that she doesn't even view it as a job. Wow.
Or, I mean, to use David's example, that agricultural example was the existence of about 99.9% of humanity for its entire existence until the last 200 years.
That was my point.
People were barely living at subsistence until kaboom. And now very many people
And you know what they ate?
are typing words on a screen and pretending that they're smart and making $100,000 a year doing it. I'd say you got it pretty good, Taylor.
But
You got it pretty good.
at least they got to order McDonald's for the whole family on the way home from work that day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. In feudal Europe,
Right.
when they're slaving through a field all day long, right? And then they got home, they cozied up next to their AC that was keeping them warm at night because it's frigid temperatures out there. And all of their 7 children ate that night, and not one of them died because of cold exposure. And your wife didn't die giving birth to the last one, which is why you don't have 8. She understands all those complex things.
And, again, last point, I kind of alluded to with the first one, but it really, really drives the point home with this world GDP data is just imagine the roles were reversed. Imagine that in year 1, when Jesus was walking the earth, that we had freedom and caffeine voluntarily.
It's bull market, I'm telling you. You got to invest in
exchange, and people own the fruits of their labor and could build on it and grow their personal wealth. And, capitalism, and then socialism only came into being in the last 200 years, and the chart looked like that. You think we'd ever hear the end of that? We'd never do. But yet, the thing that's actually responsible for that apparently produces a hellscape, according to Taylor Lorenz. It really is a completely just batshit crazy worldview that these people have. But,
But again,
we're trying to win them over one at a time.
All they have to do to educate themselves is just relieve themselves of everything that this hellscape is attached to. Let go of your phone. Let go of your cushy little apartment. Let go of your car. Let go of this. Go live out in the wilderness. That's still an option. You can still go off the grid. You can still move over to communist, whatever fucking country you want. It's not against the laws. But you won't do it. But you'll stay here and keep complaining.